having me. The Women's Caucus is very interesting. The idea of a Women's Caucus was born 20 years ago, and it was actually the founder of my organization, the Women's Environment and Development Organization, Bella Asberg, who devised this idea. And it was intended, first of all, it was born out of friendship, of a group of women that were interested in articulating and bringing together gender issues and environmental issues, and particularly bringing the voices of women into the Sustainable Development Agenda. So from there on, 20 years ago, these conventions have always had this space for women to come together. And it's not only women. I would have to say it's women and men that are gender champions, that are interested in bringing, again, these voices that have been unheard for a while into these negotiations. And so we try to create these very dynamic spaces. This particular year, it was in memory of a colleague of ours and friend, very dear friend, Marie Kahn. Marie Kahn used to be the CBD focal point. Unfortunately, she passed away last year, but Marie had a vision as well for the Women Caucus, that it was not only a place for advocacy and for strategizing, but also a capacity building space. A space where, again, women and men could come together, we could discuss the issues that were concerning us, and then, of course, strategize, go forward, and trying to find a place in the negotiations for these concerns to be addressed.
And give us an idea about what exactly you're doing. So you meet every day, and are you applying direct pressure to ministers? Are you trying to advocate for more inclusion of the mention of women or the role of women in the text? What exactly is your kind of aim?
Well, I think you've hit all of the high notes of our work. Yes, we try to influence at different level and do advocacy both with the parties to be able to have certain mentions of either gender equality or women in strategic places. Just to give you an example, in the poverty alleviation and the development agenda, we were very interested in ensuring that women were recognized as one of the important stakeholders when it comes to recognizing who are the stewards of conservation and sustainable use. So that is just one of the very specific issues we have a focus. As well, we try for countries to recognize that there are a lot of policies. The CBD, we have a fantastic compilation that we made this year with all of the decisions from COP1 to COP10, showing all of the decisions where gender has been successfully incorporated. So they have a mandate. Now, we are facing an interesting challenge, I would have to say, this particular year in the fact that it's all about implementation. And so there's still a gap when it comes to implementing these gender-sensitive policies. We are not seeing that they're transforming in gender-responsive actions in the countries. So that, I think, is going to be one of the focuses of our work from now on. We have given it a lot of thought this time. We have approached many parties to engage them and also to give them a helping hand. Because many times when you say gender, people just roll their eyes and say, oh yes, gender, it's such an important thing. But how do you work with it? How do you address these gender considerations? What does it look like? And I think that this is where bringing in the experience from the women from the caucus that are well experienced in working on the ground is crucial, because then it just saying to the parties, here we are, this is the expertise we have, and this is what we can help. So we do that. As I said, we do advocacy, capacity building, very important. And again, I think that another important issue is establishing a very strong network. Without strong women's networks, you're never going to be able to either advance the gender agenda or, when it comes to the CBD, fulfill the goals of the CBD.
You mentioned this COP is all about implementation, and I suppose it's hard to imagine how you could implement a lot of the goals if you do not have women on board, given, I don't know the stats, women probably make up half, if not more, of the world's population. But also, is it important? Is it necessary to reframe the kind of gender debate a bit away from hardcore sort of feminist, those kind of views, which sometimes exclude more than include, and focus more on, this is all about implementation. It's not necessarily just about rights. This is common sense.
Yes, and I think that that's a question that many people ask us, if it is all about ecofeminism and women's rights, and there is a big part of it, because we do have to acknowledge that women are not fully enjoying their rights around the world. Gender equality is not a reality on the ground. But the way to work with it when we implement it does not have to hone on those issues particularly. I have been working for the past 2 years in 7 countries, and that has given me a very unique lesson, that work on the ground. And we were working implementing climate change policies. And it is more that you need a triple yes. And this triple yes idea is that in order for gender equality to be a reality, and for the sustainable development agendas as well to be a reality, you need a framework in place, and you need multiple things. And what are these things? You need policies. That's the first thing. International and national policies that are gender sensitive, that mention, the importance of including women as a stakeholder, recognizing that they need to be there, that we need to address as well gender inequalities that could affect or hamper the success of the process as well. You need as well political willingness. Very important to be able to identify that it is an important issue and that we need to start understanding how to address it. And that is not coming from a conceptual framework, that is not coming from top up, but we need to go back down and take snapshots of the reality of the countries, and to be able, again, to see what is the situation of these women, where do we need to work? And in many countries it is, for example, on relationships between women and men. Because we can empower all of the women of the world, but if there are still issues when it comes to relating to men, then that empowerment can actually backfire. So that is one. The other yes is knowledge and capacities. We see that it is important not only to have a knowledge about women's rights, but a knowledge about these linkages. A knowledge with different environmental issues, a knowledge with sustainable development. And the last yes, again, it's women's networks. And women's networks that are bringing together women from different levels. Not only grassroots women, not only professional women, not only politicians. It is these platforms that allow you for a true multi-stakeholder engagement to be able to find a way of how to address these issues. Again, as I said, to me it's very important that it doesn't come from a conceptual idea, but more from the ground. And as well, these networks are inclusive. They're not only women's networks. I think that these are should be networks where you have the broadest diversity of women and men, where you have both women and men, and where youth as well is present. Because if not, you're not going to make any of these processes sustainable. Now, probably you're asking yourself, have you seen this in a country? And I would have to say yes. There are countries that do have these triple yes, and when it comes to the implementation of these gender-sensitive policies, the process goes in a very unique way. And the country that I am closest to is Nepal, where I worked, and it is fantastic to see that they would hit the mark on all of these issues. And then you could bring something as complex as a standard for RED and work with it. And work with it as in a very pragmatic and realistic way, and saying, these are the issues we can address, these issues we cannot address them right now, but if we could advance in these aspects, we would move toward equality, we would move toward sustainability. So yes, it's not a traditional feminist approach, I would have to say.